The book I'm sharing with you today is Animal Weapons. An intriguing title, isn't it? This is a unique non-fiction work that explores the evolutionary principles of animal weaponry. The subjects of this book, from the massive antlers of a stag and the sharp teeth of a wolf to a scorpion's venomous sting and the disproportionately large claws of a small crab, are all familiar sights from nature documentaries. Whether on the African savanna or in the Amazon jungle, animals are constantly fighting to hunt, seize territory, and win mating rights. Their arsenals include not only the usual sharp teeth and claws, but also many weapons that defy imagination. You might not know how a giraffe fights. They swing their long necks violently, using their hard heads to strike opponents. Its neck and skull act like a flail, a mace on a chain. How powerful is this flail? A blow from an adult male giraffe can deliver hundreds of pounds of force, enough to shatter human bones instantly. So, a giraffe's seemingly gentle neck is a vital weapon for survival, just like the sharp fangs, claws, and massive horns of other animals. Every minute in nature, a life or death struggle unfolds. The quality of an animal's weaponry directly determines its survival. The author of Animal Weapons, Douglas Emlen, is a world-renowned evolutionary biologist and a leading expert on animal weaponry. For over 20 years, he has traveled across Africa, Australia, and Central and South America, seeking out the most extreme and bizarre animals. After studying the vast array of weapons in the animal kingdom and observing all kinds of battles, he discovered an ultimate underlying principle. It is the pressure of evolution that drives animals down the path of developing weapons and engaging in arms races. Furthermore, the author's research offers a unique perspective. He mentions in the foreword that as he compiled these animal stories, the more he studied the commonalities behind their weapons, the more he was struck by their parallels with the development of human weapons. This led him to dive deep into human military and social history, exploring how humanity's ultimate weapons have evolved. Sure enough, he found astonishing similarities between the evolutionary rules of animal weapons and human arms races. Emlen masterfully weaves these two evolutionary histories together in his book, Animal Weapons. All right, let's dive in and see what fascinating insights this book has to offer. First, how did animal weapons evolve? Second, what three conditions are necessary for the emergence of an ultimate weapon? Third, what are the stages of an evolutionary arms race? And finally, what are the similarities between the evolution of animal weapons and human arms races? Let's start with the first question. Why did animals evolve weapons in the first place? You'd probably say, for fighting. And you'd be right. In countless documentaries, we've witnessed the constant life or death battles in nature. Animals need sharp teeth and claws to hunt for energy, and they also need defensive weapons to fend off predators. More often, however, they fight with their own kind. With limited resources, be it food, territory, mating rights, or leadership, everything must be won through fierce combat. Failure could mean losing the chance to reproduce. Therefore, over the long course of evolution, animals have equipped themselves with sophisticated weapons, such as the forked antlers of a stag, the curved tusks of an African elephant, the sharp claws of a big cat, and the venomous fangs of a rattlesnake, all powerful offensive tools. Of course, it's not just about offense. The quills on a hedgehog's back, a turtle's hard shell, a pangolin's scales, and even a chameleon's camouflage are all ingenious defensive weapons. Among these bizarre weapons, one type fascinated the author the most: oversized ultimate weapons. Here, oversized isn't about absolute size, but the weapon's proportion to the animal's body. These ultimate weapons can be found on large animals like elephants and on tiny ones, such as a small West African wasp with disproportionately massive, twisted mandibles. You might think that when it comes to weapons, bigger is always better. The longer the reach, the stronger the might, right? Whoever has the bigger horns or longer teeth has the advantage. Indeed, the author's research confirms that evolving large, ultimate weapons is a trend seen in many species. The more predators a species has, the more its weapons are driven to evolve toward a larger scale. But think again, are species with massive weapons like moose and elephants really that common in nature? Seems not. This is because while large weapons offer maximum attack power, they also come with a fatal flaw. They are incredibly cumbersome. They're difficult to carry, and dragging a heavy weapon makes it hard to escape danger. There's another point you might not have considered. Maintaining large weapons comes at a huge resource cost. Take the moose. A bull moose's antlers are enormous and imposing, with 7 tines, reaching up to 3 feet in length, nearly half its body length. A moose takes years to mature, but its massive antlers grow in just a few months, far outpacing any other bone in its body. This process consumes an immense amount of nutrients and energy. The calcium and phosphorus needed for antler growth far exceed what can be obtained from food alone. Their bodies must draw these minerals from their own skeletons. As a result, many bull moose even develop osteoporosis. During mating season, the bulls fight relentlessly, often ending up covered in wounds with their bones becoming fragile. If they can't replenish their energy in time, death awaits them when winter arrives. So, in animal evolution, bigger isn't always better for weapons. If they become too large, they turn into a burden, and the high resource cost can threaten survival itself. When survival is at stake, reproduction is out of the question. Combined with random genetic mutations, individuals with less exaggerated weapons gradually become better adapted to their environment. Through round after round of competition and selection, the once giant weapons fade away, replaced by new forms. That's why, although these oversized weapons have appeared repeatedly throughout evolutionary history, only about 3,000 out of approximately 1.3 million species retain such equipment today. As I mentioned, through natural evolution and selection, most species today are equipped not with the biggest weapons, but with just right weapons that strike a perfect balance between size and cost. A perfect example is the teeth of carnivores, which have highly specialized roles. The canines are the longest and sharpest, used to deliver a fatal blow. The premolars grip and hold prey, and the molars are for cutting and tearing during feeding. The wolf is the master of this carnivorous toolkit. Their long, elegant jaws have an incredible bite speed. Paired with strong canines, they can clamp down on the ribs or thigh of large prey, easily bringing it to the ground. After a successful hunt, the pack feasts, and the molars come into play. Their edges are as sharp as scissors, effortlessly slicing through sinew and muscle. At the same time, the molars are thick enough to crush small bones with ease. However, these versatile teeth have their downsides. With so many teeth crowded into one mouth, it's difficult for all of them to function properly. The natural fracture rate for carnivore teeth is quite high on average. 1 in every 4 teeth is either lost, broken, or completely shattered. For a predator, a damaged tooth can be a death sentence. Therefore, the evolution of animal weapons is fundamentally a trade-off. A larger weapon might be more lethal, but it's also heavier and more costly to maintain. Sometimes, a species with smaller weapons gains an advantage through its agility. The result of this evolutionary tug-of-war is moderation, the optimal balance between size and function. That covers the first part. To summarize, the evolution of animal weapons forces most species to find a balance between bigger and better. But there are always exception species that seem to ignore balance on their evolutionary journey, believing only in big. Generation after generation, they relentlessly push the limits of weapon size. If you're big, I'll be bigger. The entire population charges headfirst toward developing the ultimate weapon. It's these exceptions that led the author to his next question. Why do these unrestrained arms races, which push weapons to become ever larger, occur? This brings me to the second part, the 3 conditions required for an ultimate weapon to emerge. These 3 conditions are intense mating competition, significant economic benefits, and one-on-one combat. First, mating competition. For most animals, the burden of raising offspring falls primarily on the female. This creates a severe imbalance in the time males and females spend on reproduction. A female's time is mostly consumed by pregnancy and raising young, leaving a very short window when she can conceive. Therefore, males must compete fiercely for limited mating opportunities. The African elephant is a perfect example. A female elephant endures a 2-year pregnancy followed by a 2-year period of raising her calf, meaning it takes 4 full years to raise one offspring. And during that time, how brief is the window for her to conceive? Just 5 days. This means a male elephant's chances to mate are incredibly rare. Without a desperate fight, they stand no chance of passing on their genes. And how do they fight? For male African elephants, it all comes down to their massive size and sharp tusks. Research in a Kenyan national park found that out of 89 bulls, 53 had never fathered a calf, while most of the young were sired by just the 3 strongest bulls in the herd. To win the chance to reproduce, male elephants must pour all their resources into growing their tusks to gain an edge in duels. Brutal male competition is the first crucial condition that triggers an arms race. The second condition is whether developing a weapon brings economic benefits. You might wonder what weapons have to do with economics. They have everything to do with it as it relates to fighting for food and territory. Nature is a master economist. Anyone who doesn't use resources wisely gets eliminated. All animals favor a high return on investment. Whether a weapon provides economic benefits is another key factor in determining if an arms race will occur. Let's take the author's favorite subject, the dung beetle. Dung beetles can be roughly divided into 2 types, hornless rollers and horned tunnelers. Their different methods of storing dung balls lead to these physical differences. Rollers like to cut a piece from a large dung pile, roll it into a ball, and then push it along to find a soft, moist place to bury it and lay eggs. This journey is perilous, as rivals constantly try to steal the ball. They fight all along the way to see who can ultimately push the dung ball into their own territory. The tunneler beetles, on the other hand, have a different strategy. The female digs a tunnel directly beneath a dung pile and drags the dung ball inside. The male then guards the tunnel entrance, blocking other competitors. They use their horns to brace against the tunnel walls to block opponents or to pry them out of the hole. They also use their mandibles and spiny legs to anchor themselves firmly in the tunnel to maximize the power of their large horns. The result is predictable. The male with the bigger horns is more likely to win. So you see, because rollers fight in open areas, they don't need to evolve tools like horns for defense. But for tunnelers, the narrow tunnels and the need to defend resources and dual-led males to evolve horns. This shows that if a resource is valuable enough to be worth fighting for, it can also drive a species to evolve large weapons. The third condition is the method of combat. Fights between species can be categorized into 2 types, brawls and duels. In a brawl, the outcome is unpredictable, and an individual's weapon is less effective. Take the sand wasp. When a female matures, males are drawn by her scent to her hiding place. Often, dozens of males will charge at once, engaging in a chaotic mid-air brawl over territory. Although they meet the conditions of mating competition and defending economic benefits, this brawling style of combat means the sand wasp hasn't evolved any special weapons. For species that brawl, large weapons just aren't worth the cost. But for species accustomed to dueling, the direction of weapon development is completely different. A duel is a test of raw power. In a head-on confrontation, it's all about strength, endurance, and weapon size. Therefore, species that engage in one-on-one duels are more likely to evolve ultimate weapons. Examples abound, like the African elephants we mentioned, where males evolve tusks over 6 feet long. Male deer also engage in duels, which has driven the evolution of their massive antlers. So, without one-on-one combat, there's no need to develop an ultimate weapon. That concludes the second part. So, once an arms race begins a process remarkably similar in both animal and human societies, it's very hard to stop. In the third part, we'll look at the 5 thrilling, dramatic stages of this arms race. The first stage, growth at any cost. This means animals invest resources into a single superior weapon, no matter the price. An interesting example is the fiddler crab. This common crab's weapons are its 2 front claws, or chelae. A male fiddler crab typically has 1 claw that grows abnormally large, sometimes accounting for half its total body weight. This means that during its development and daily life, half the energy a male crab consumes goes to feeding this giant claw. And this weapon is no mere decoration when used. It can instantly crush an opponent's shell. But everything has a downside. When not fighting, this magnificent weapon is a heavy burden. Fiddler crabs need both claws to eat, but a male with 1 giant claw can only eat with its smaller one. It needs more energy to sustain the giant claw, yet its eating speed is halved. This leaves it exposed to predators for longer, greatly increasing its risk of being eaten. Even so, for the fiddler crab, the large claw is its greatest advantage, so it will spare no expense, prioritizing nutrients for the development of this ultimate weapon. After the growth at any cost stage, the competition becomes more rational, entering the second stage, honest signaling. Here, competitors no longer invest blindly. While still seeking an advantage, they first ensure their own survival based on the resources they can allocate, and only then plan for weapon development. Usually, you can tell an individual's strength at a glance. Generally, the larger an animal's weapon, the stronger its fighting ability. But if you look closely, you'll see that even within the same species, not all males have large weapons. The main reason is the resource trade-off. In short, they can't afford it. While in theory all males want to develop large weapons, they are like expensive luxury goods. You not only have to be able to buy them, but also maintain them with a constant supply of resources. Individuals within a species vary greatly. With limited resources, barely enough for basic survival, most males don't have the surplus to support this luxury and have to settle for less. For example, some strong moose produce stronger calves that secure more and better resources, naturally growing larger. Other calves, born to weaker parents, are smaller and develop more slowly, getting just enough nutrition to survive, with nothing left to grow impressive antlers. Other factors, like disease, also play a role. If a moose gets sick during its growth period, it's unlikely to develop large antlers. These factors together lead to a wide variation in weapon size. A weapon is like a mirror, directly reflecting an animal's health and combat strength. This is the honest signaling stage. Next, competitors enter the third stage, victory without a fight. This is where the traits of the strong are so obvious and easily recognized that they often only need to display their advantage to intimidate opponents into backing down. In the animal kingdom, winning without fighting is the biggest benefit of having a large weapon. At this stage, individuals who once invested everything in developing their weapons can now simply flex their muscles and show off their arsenal to scare off rivals, who won't dare to challenge them. As mentioned, the fiddler crab's weapon is its giant claw. If you get a chance to watch them duel, it's fascinating. They first size up their opponent's appearance. If they encounter a crab with a bigger claw, they usually choose to flee immediately. Even with evenly matched opponents, they don't rush into battle. Instead, they use their claws to push each other, testing the opponent's strength. Only after a round or two, when both feel confident they can win, does the real fight begin. Therefore, in the victory without a fight stage, the strategy leans toward either being invincible in battle or making the enemy submit without a fight. By now, the competitive landscape is established, and the advantages of the strong are clear. For weaker competitors, a head-on clash is almost hopeless. The smart move, like the fiddler crabs, is to pick fights you can win otherwise, conserve your strength and wait for a future opportunity. The fourth stage of competition, alternative tactics, is the perfect time for the underdog to strike back. This means that while the weak don't confront the strong directly, they use unconventional methods to break through, achieving victory by outsmarting or outmaneuvering the strong. Let's look at mountain goats. Their weapons are the magnificent horns on their heads. The leader of the herd is typically the largest male with the most impressive horns, and he monopolizes all the females. But no matter how vigilant the leader is, some smaller, weaker males manage to sneak past him and forcibly mate with the females. Even if they get a beating from the leader afterward, it's worth it. Some weaker males go even further, forgoing horn development altogether. They use their smaller size to disguise themselves as females, blending into the herd to get close to the ewes, mating with lightning speed, and then melting back into the group as if nothing happened. There are many other interesting examples, like the ocean sunfish and salmon. Males of these fish species will first stake out a sandy area, clear it, and wait for females to come and lay their eggs. The female will choose the most desirable spot as her nursery, laying her eggs next to the largest, most attractive male and inviting him to fertilize them. The smaller males, who can't defend a territory or woo a female, have only one option. While the happy couple is preoccupied, they sneak in and spray their own sperm over the fruits of their love. Nature's invisible hand is very fair. Whether it's goats or salmon, The smaller males who lack the resources to develop weapons may be weaker in combat, but they are faster, have larger reproductive organs, and more potent sperm. This alternative tactics stage is the best opportunity for the weak to break the monopoly of the strong using surprise strategies. By employing clever tactics, whether through disguise or speed, the weak can directly undermine the dominant position of the strong and create their own chance to shine. When the competitive landscape has solidified and the rules are set by the strong, the path to victory isn't to follow the rules, but to break them and forge a new path. Once the weak successfully break through with surprise attacks, the competition is naturally pushed to its final stage, the fifth stage, a truce. This means the expansionist trend of the strong begins to wane, eventually reaching a stable equilibrium with all other participants. In the animal world, the bigger the weapon, the greater the cost. So, in theory, every population will reach a balance point in weapon development. Before this point, the cost of production is offset by greater chances of survival and reproduction, but once it's surpassed, weapons become too big to succeed, and the species' overall armament level stabilizes. However, after a period of stability, this state can be disrupted by the sudden emergence of a new type of weapon, kicking off a new cycle of competition. So far, we've explored the 5 essential stages of an animal arms race through a variety of fascinating stories. Now, what do we discover when we look at the evolution of human weapons from this perspective? In this final part, I'll analyze why the evolution of animal weapons and human arms races share such remarkable parallels, arriving at the same destination through different paths. The author tells us that 3 core elements of an arms race: defensive fortifications, delivery systems, and weapons of mass destruction exhibit astonishing similarities between the animal world and human society. Let's start with termites. A termite mound is a magnificent defensive fortress. Termites can build castles up to 10 feet high, 2,000 times their own body length. The outer wall of this castle is as hard as brick. You'd need a sledgehammer or an axe to break it open, and striking it can even create sparks. But after all that effort to break through the outer wall, you won't see a single termite. That's because there's an inner wall, and between the 2 walls lies a trench. Only by crossing the trench and breaking the second wall can you reach the actual living quarters. At the center is the most heavily protected chamber for the queen, with only one exit to the outside, sometimes so small that the queen herself can't get through. Protection, storage, and temperature control, these are the 3 main functions of the termite castle, with protection being the most important. Humans are the same. In the military, fortifications act as a force multiplier, allowing a defending force to withstand a much stronger attack. During the 2 world wars, the safest shelters were deep underground tunnels. As many as 150,000 Londoners slept nightly in the maze-like tunnels of the underground. To block a German invasion, the French invested heavily in the Maginot Line, a defensive line stretching for hundreds of miles. The Japanese dug countless tunnels, gun emplacements, and barracks into the limestone of Pacific Islands. Eisenhower's command post in Gibraltar was also built deep inside a mountain. Today, deep beneath the Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado, the Cheyenne Mountain Complex, built at a cost of billions of dollars, lies hidden 2,300 feet below the surface, covered by millions of tons of hard rock, arguably the most secure fortification on Earth. Another critical military element is the delivery system. Human delivery systems are very similar to those of animals. They consume energy to move and must strike a balance between payload capacity and maneuverability. In the World Wars, all participants in the air war relentlessly developed better aircraft. One day the French would have the lead, the next the British would pull ahead, and then Germany would catch up. New models of aircraft took to the skies one after another, each striving to be higher, faster, and stronger. The Cold War was arguably the most breathtaking arms race in human history. Both sides engaged in relentless military buildup, with weapon costs becoming incalculable. In the early Cold War, the Soviet Union amassed a massive fleet of over 450 ships. In response, the United States poured all its efforts into developing the world's first nuclear-powered submarine, terrifying the Soviets, who immediately began building their own fleet of new nuclear submarines. They were locked in a neck-and-neck race. The ultimate development of an arms race leads to the emergence of weapons of mass destruction. Remember how we discussed that without the deterrence of large weapons, conflicts within a population often become bloody. Large weapons allow animals to achieve victory without a fight. Similarly, human arms races also develop weapons of mass destruction, using them as a signal to deter opponents, thereby avoiding war and maintaining peace. Human weapons of mass destruction include nuclear and biochemical weapons. Their appearance changed the game, making it possible for weaker nations to challenge stronger ones. But these weapons themselves cause immense collateral damage. Although they can serve as a deterrent, it doesn't mean they will never be used. Deterrence only reduces the probability of their use. The reality of the animal world tells us that once such weapons are used, the conflict will inevitably escalate into all-out war. If no competitor backs down, the outcome is a desperate, do-or-die battle. The emergence of weapons of mass destruction has put many countries on an equal footing, facing each other in a standoff. If we factor in terrorist organizations, the prospect becomes even more terrifying. It's hard to imagine what the world would become. As the author quotes Albert Einstein at the beginning of the book, "I know not with what weapons World War III will be fought, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones." This implies that the endpoint of weapons of mass destruction could be humanity's self-destruction. Alright, let me summarize the book Animal Weapons that I've shared with you today. We've explored the evolutionary patterns of animal weapons from 4 perspectives. First, how do animal weapons evolve? The author found that weapon development often starts small and then evolves in 2 directions: bigger and better. Through the mechanism of natural selection, animals use the principle of balance to achieve an optimal combination of size and function. Second, the 3 conditions for an arms race. The pursuit of large weapons begins with intense mating competition among animals. It also requires 2 other necessary conditions: economic benefits and one-on-one combat. Third, the 5 stages of an arms race. Once the competition kicks off, it's as if an invisible hand drives evolution toward the largest ultimate weapons. I've detailed the 5 stages for you: growth at any cost, honest signaling, victory without a fight, alternative tactics, and a truce. Fourth, the similarities between animal and human arms races. The 3 elements of defensive fortifications, delivery systems, and weapons of mass destruction show astonishing, convergent similarities in the animal world and human society. If the next arms race spirals out of control, humanity could face self-destruction. Okay, that's the essence of the book Animal Weapons. Today, we've explored the evolutionary stages of animal weapons and the nature of competition. I hope that by understanding these laws of nature, you can develop your own competitive advantages. Thinking about these themes is a great way to spark new ideas, and I hope this summary inspires you to reflect on your own goals and strategies. I'll be back with more summaries of insightful books to help you keep learning and growing. Natural selection, survival of the fittest. It is competition that has created this wonderfully diverse world. It brings threats, but more importantly, it brings opportunities. I wish you success in navigating your own competitive landscapes and continuously evolving. Congratulations, you've just finished another book.